Right. Hello to all my guys, gals, and non-binary pals. It is Wick back with another Wicked Weekly Windup. And this time we are finally getting around to that gay Ozian history lesson that I was talking about literally at the beginning of Pride Month, and life ended up happening and the presentation didn't. But now here we are, literally at the end of June. I mean, it's July for you guys, but I'm recording this in June, so it counts. And finally, I'm going to be your Professor Dillerman for today. Dr. Dillman, I'm so sorry. Oh my god, I'm the worst Wicked fan ever. Everyone needs to cancel me right now. God. Anyways, as you can see, or maybe not see, I'm not on cam today just because it's easier for me to record it like this since I'm trying to show you guys a presentation and I don't want my stupid face in the corner covering things up. And actually, I did not get any responses to the question of the week, so it's easier for me to just do this rather than have my face on cam for an intro and then switch. But I'll say that my favorite costume of Wicked, as perhaps basic as it may be, is probably the bubble dress, just because I like the layers and colors. Even though, funnily enough, my favorite color is red, and I like the Elphaba Wicked Act 2 dress close up. That's why I mentioned it in the last video. But from far away, like that, I feel like I can appreciate from a larger scale. I like Glinda's bubble dress. The pink, popular dress is iconic because we need it for the pink goes good with green joke. But God, that bubble dress is just so beautiful. I would never wear it, but I love looking at it. I wish it was a little more salmony like the Glinda in the actual 1939 film, so that way we could keep the pink goes good with green. But the Cinderella blue works too. Anyways, that's my answer to the question of the week. I actually might leave it open for another week in case anybody does want to reply for this week. So, guys, what's your favorite costume? Or if anyone does have a better question they want to ask, feel free to throw it in the comments, or I'm going to keep hashing through it until somebody else answers. But anyways, allow me to do as I promised and get along with this PowerPoint. And I actually have divided up into two parts. First, it'll only be 10 minutes max, but just for my sake, the first half we'll be focusing on the Wizard of Oz and its queer history, as you can see by the meme. Friends of Dorothy. Even though the Friends of Dorothy term is not where the story begins chronologically, it's where I'm going to begin just because I've referenced it before in other episodes of this series, so you guys might recognize it. And as the first bullet says, if you don't, it kind of reminds you it was a euphemism for a gay man that was first used if you wanted to check but you couldn't ask it outright because of a couple quotes from the book where somebody said, "Hey, Dorothy, you got some queer friends," and they meant weird. But of course, with queer also meaning LGBTQ+, people have interpreted it differently because then Dorothy says, "Oh, weird or not, who cares? As long as I like them." So then that became that thing of like, if you're a friend of Dorothy, it means you're with somebody who doesn't mind that you're gay. And then there's also, I threw on the other side to the slide the possibly bisexual joke when Dorothy asks the Scarecrow which way to go on the yellow brick road, and he says, some people go both ways. And another thing I wanted to point out that there's no stereotypical romance in Wonderful Wizard of Oz. Like, Dorothy doesn't get a boyfriend. She doesn't even get a girlfriend. There isn't even any hinting at it. It's literally just a girl and her three dudes, her three gay guy friends. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with childhood romance, like Peter and Wendy type, your first crush when you're a kid. But I do like the fact that it is kind of non-traditional in that way. And it is more about found family rather than finding your partner, soulmate, romantic, significant other, what have you. Because I feel like they unintentionally, maybe it's just me, did a little bit in the movie when she says goodbye to everyone and tells the Scarecrow she'll miss him most. And I think it was because she met him first, but sometimes it makes it seem like she loves him most. And I'm like, dude, you gotta say that in front of the other two. And also I'm like, yo, let's not have shipping because I enjoy a story without shipping for once. And two, I mean, if especially in the movie when the characters are based off the farmhands, I'm like, aren't the farmhands kind of too old for Dorothy? But anyway, sorry, I'm digressing. But of course, another parallel that people have pointed out often is going from that dreary gray farm life into the colorful pop technicolor city of emerald and rainbow, somewhere over the rainbow. And that, of course, rural queers versus going to the cliche cities like LA, New York. And then just a little bit more interesting history about the etymology of this phrase, actually, funnily enough. Like, if you guys have ever heard of convergent evolution, it's when two unrelated creatures wind up having similar traits just because they happen to have gone through similar things throughout the history of their evolution, even if they weren't related. That's this. This lady on the left is named Dorothy Parker, and she had nothing to do with Oz, but it just so happened that she was another lady around the 1920s who was into the gay stuff. And so because of that, her name essentially became synonymous with code for, hey, that's the lady that's chill with the queer folk. So I just thought it was kind of interesting that we've got another queer-friendly Dorothy that had nothing to do with Oz, but was still very much similar. All of my sources and citations, by the way, will be in this PowerPoint at the end, and I'm gonna convert this to a Google Slide so that way people can have it, and that way if people are like, what, no way, you will have everything for yourself that you can verify, just to let you know. But now to focus more on the book, we have the character of Ozma / Tip, who, if we could say that Dorothy / the three Scarecrow, Tin Man, and Cowardly Lion are like the LGB rep, then Ozma and Tip are the trans rep. Now, that's not to say the communities are separate. We letters are all together, like how you have all colors of a rainbow in one rainbow. But the thing with Ozma and Tip is, just for people who might not know, this character actually only appears in the second book and onward. So if you're like me and you didn't even really know that there was another Oz book, let alone way many more, you didn't know Ozma was a character until Wicked. So that's why I put that quick summary there. This character was essentially kidnapped as a baby by the Wizard of Oz and given to a witch named Mombi to raise in secrecy. And Mombi turned Ozma into a boy. But then, Dorothy happens and Glinda finds Tip and undoes the spell and is like, oh, you're Ozma, actually. So in this case, depending on how you look at it, we essentially have a character who is female, who became male and then was raised male, who was then the spell was reversed, and then they went back to being female, and then lived out the rest of their days as female. So to me, you could headcanon this character as gender fluid or non-binary if you're not just doing male to female or female to male. But that's what I mean. Like, this is a character in the 1900s changing gender. I know it's not like Tip is the first or only, but that's pretty special for something literally over 100 years ago, and we're just now starting to accept trans people. I wish it didn't take so long. But anyways, then just another point, as you can see, Ozma and Dorothy are described by the author himself as being each other's closest friends, relationships, confidants, whatever you'd like to call it. So I'm not necessarily saying, oh my god, it means they're lesbians. That at least that's another element of queerness. It's not like Tip is just the genderqueer one. Tip also has a queer relationship with Dorothy, whether you want to say it's romantic or not. It's up to you. Oh, and like I said, since I'm splitting this up into part 1, part 2, this is the references essentially page of the Wizard of Oz history. And next will be the Wicked segment. All right, you guys, picking up where we left off. As you can see, we are now at the Wicked half of this presentation, and we are heralding it with another meme. Honestly, now that I think about it, I might legitimately do a Wicked Weekly Windup where I just make and/or react to memes that I find. Maybe not next week, because I'm going to put a poll in the description again to ask people what they want to see next week. But probably in the future I will do a meme episode. I really have to now. Anyways, let's get going. Friend of Elphaba. As you can see with the first bullet, what I mean by not technically a real term is that unlike Friend of Dorothy, it doesn't have some deep historical basis or lore. It was just something that people made in response to Friend of Dorothy to be funny because Wick is about Elphaba. And I love the term, don't get me wrong, but just there's no deep history to it. We're going to make it historical, but anyways. What's queer in the book, for example, first thing, it goes way beyond just Gelfie. But Elphaba is at least heavily implied to be some degree of intersex. And what I mean by that is those who've read the books will know that when she's born, the midwife seems to find something between her legs, but it's a very turbulent moment, so there's not really time to check. But they mention that it seems to wash off in the water, so they think maybe it's just a bit of afterbirth and not really anything. But also, to be fair, we know that water burns Elphaba, so it's kind of gruesome. But to be fair, I mean, Elphaba could have actually been born with both parts and was essentially unintentionally castrated. Now, I know that's taking it a step too far. I'm not saying that's what it is. That's conspiracy stuff. But again, they do repeatedly make reference to the idea of Elphaba being some degree of intersex, not even just at birth, but descriptions of masculine features or less than feminine features, for example, that very flat chest, which again, that's not to say that women with flat chests are not real women or that they're intersex, but it just, in my opinion, I like the headcanon of intersex Elphaba. And her parents, of course, again in the book, and maybe some degree in the musical, are queer and poly, since we've got the Wizard, Frex, Melina, and Turtleheart. Not all 4 at once, but usually at least 2 or 3 at a time. And in the book, they had 3 kids. In the musical, only 2, but yeah, a lot of mixing and matching going on in that household. Again, that's not to say that, like, cheating and all that jazz is inherently queer and that they're a healthy, example of a polyamorous relationship, but it's there. Similarly, of course, as I just said, Elphaba was raised by a non-traditional family, and again, I know it's not like queer people have a monopoly on that, but obviously, by default, a queer family is non-traditional. People are going to look at you funny if you got two mommies or two daddies. And of course, Elphaba struggles with bigotry and bias, not just because of her skin color or her sexuality, but sometimes even because of her class, like she's not very wealthy, or the fact that she comes from Munchkin land and is sort of a disgraced family, like she used to be an eminent throp, but by the time she's been born, her father's kind of messed up the reputation by being known as that religious nutcase guy. And again, sort of like what we said with Judy Garland, even though it's not like suffering is unique to queer people or that we have a monopoly on that, obviously the community will look at a struggling character and identify with it, because the queer community, despite, pride being like rainbows, it's like, it's not like we've had a happy history, you guys. And what I believe also really works about Wicked is that it does balance fantasy with relatable reality, where on the one hand you get this magical school of magical stuff with talking animals and clockwork TikToks, so cool. But you're also seeing very real things that a lot of people can relate to, like feeling marginalized or outcasted or unwanted or unliked or unloved, or the desire everyone deserves a chance to fly. And the author himself of Wicked is gay. I mean, he's married to a guy named Andy Newman. It was one of the first same-sex marriages in Massachusetts, according to Wiki, and they have 3 children together. So that's cool. I'm pretty sure L. Frank Baum had a wife, and if he didn't, he was probably single, not necessarily gay. That's not to say he wasn't an ally, but it just, bit of trivia for you guys that the author of Wicked was actually gay. Although I'm sure a lot of Wicked fans know that at this point. And I just put a little bit of information about the two. We got a sequels trilogy to Wicked, and then a prequel book. Again, I'll be putting links to everything in the PowerPoint, and then the link to the PowerPoint in the description if anyone wants to save any of this. And then just queer things about the musical. Again, this is by no means comprehensive. It's just to not keep everybody here all day, because I could easily do an hour-long class on this. Theater itself, pretty gay. I don't think I need to explain the connection between Broadway and the queer community. And this one, for me, just a little bit of notice. Although it was unplanned, Frozen is often compared to Wicked. I mean, we've got Idina, we've got Bad Girl that's actually good, we've got Magic that's hated, we've got, okay, I could go on all day. But also having that queer subtext. Elphaba's gay, Elsa's gay, everybody's defying gravity and letting it go out here. And in my opinion, the decision to cast Cynthia as Elphaba was brilliant, because I'm not saying they only casted her for her race, not at all. But I appreciate the fact that they had a woman of color in here, because again, like, even though Elphaba wasn't just discriminated on about her skin, the parallels are so obvious that, ironically enough, the one thing that, in my opinion, is black and white is the not subtle connection between Elphaba's discriminatory experiences about her skin color and black and white racism in America, or anywhere else. I mean, I'm not saying that America is the only racist country, but again, obviously, when you've got, hey, that one girl that's got that weird skin color that nobody else likes, it's like, well, gee, what do you think that's going to remind a lot of people of? And of course, there's a lot of queer moments in the musical: hand-holding, kissing, touching, cheek brushes, especially if you've got something like, there's that the German pairing, Wilhelmine and, no, I don't think it wasn't Wilhelmine, I'm so sorry, I'm forgetting the alphabet, but I know Lucy Cher was the Glinda, where they kissed each other. I'm not saying that that's always exclusively examples of like, oh, they're lesbian because they kissed, but some very gay moments, gay opportunities, if you've got a good pairing that's got a lot of chemistry and their improv games on point. But musical motifs, like the Unlimited thing that plays, For Good's got a lot of, tunes that harken back to earlier things. I know What Is This Feeling sounds like a love song. Popular has I'm Not That Girl playing in it. Again, with For Good, I think I commented on their voice parts kind of switch, where for most of the musical, Glinda's singing the higher notes and Elphaba's singing the lower notes, but if you listen to For Good, it's actually switched. So there's a lot of beautiful ways they're able to really show the development and interconnectedness of the relationship through how the music actually is. And I'm sure anyone out there with a better brain for music than me, you guys can analyze it better than I can, but this is just kind of like a 101 introductory lesson, crash course. And then the fan base of this thing's great. I mean, it helped me realize that I was gay, and I'm sure it helped a lot of other people realize they were gay. And I'm sure a lot of people involved in various productions of Wicked are gay. Like, I highly doubt that every single actor or actress to ever play in Wicked, that every single last one of them was completely 100% cishet. No, I bet you at least a few Elphabas and Glindas were actually lesbian, even if the characters themselves were never played like 100%, they got married. You know what I mean? And then Gelfie, this slide is most opinionated. What I mean by that is it's just me talking about what I like about it rather than this being like, there's no sources or citations for this slide. So I want to make that clear so people don't, accuse me of plagiarizing or making stuff up. Like, this is just kind of a general me talking about it. But first of all, these two got the butch femme dynamic, so that's pretty cliche and classic and iconic, and we love that. And in my opinion, Glinda parallels with Fiyero anyway, so I'm like, no, literally, I'm not even trying to be a Fiyero hater. I like his character, I really do. But in my opinion, I'm like, no, really, why couldn't we have had, like, canon Gelfie? Because Glinda's goes from being the rich, spoiled, snobby airhead that doesn't like Elphaba to the girl that struggles with her morality, realizes that there's more to life than what it seems, and falls in love with Elphaba. And that's literally the exact same arc Fiyero has. And Glinda's marriage in the book, I've seen a lot of jokes. This is why I said this is an opinionated slide and not a canon slide. But the joke is when Elphaba realizes that Glinda's married, she's like, "Oh, my husband's Sir Chuffrey. He's as dry as two baked walnuts," which, from my understanding, is basically saying, no, they ain't having kids. He's not able to. Which I know it could be true that he could be genuinely infertile. That's nothing to laugh at. But sometimes I joke to myself that I'm like, maybe Glinda just never slept with them or something, or they're each other's beards. You know what I'm saying? Elphaba and Galinda. Anyways, and Elphaba's affair, I mean, again, same deal. I'm so sorry, Fiyero. I'm so sorry, but I feel like he was a rebound. In both senses, she only got with him after being with Glinda and or missing Glinda. Like, he reminded her of that shiz life she used to have. I'm not saying that she didn't love Fiyero for him, but I'm like, okay, some of it was probably a rebound. Just saying. She fell in love with Glinda at shiz, though. Anyways, that's why I put the Fiyero as an ally. I don't want it to just be let's trash Fiyero Day. I'm like, let's have him be like the goofy himbo that's either the token straight guy that learns queer acceptance or a gay guy, and we can make him and Bach the gay couple to Elphaba and Glinda's lesbian couple. Anyways, that was it for my 101 crash course on Wicked and Oz gay history. I hope everyone enjoyed. I will be putting that poll in the chat, or not in the chat, I'm sorry, description, so that way we can get a somewhat of an idea of what people want to do next week. But I hope now everyone answers the question of the week for this week, which again will be the question about favorite costumes. Of course, it's okay if not, but I'll just keep recycling it until someone tells me to stop. But this is actually a lot of fun to make, and again, also keep an eye out for this PowerPoint, which will also be in the description. See you guys later!